Breaking Chicago Bears news here on a Tuesday morning. Welcome into Chicago Bears Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Harrison Graham. Daz Newsome, the second-year wide receiver, has been cut. He has not survived this round of roster cuts. We're going to break it all down on today's show. But please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because when breaking news happens, whether I'm already in the studios or I'm at home, which I was getting ready for work and this news dropped, we're going to hit you with the news around the Chicago Bears. So go ahead and subscribe. You're not going to want to miss any of our coverage here on Bears Now. All right. Daz Newsome has been released by the Chicago Bears. I didn't think he would make the 53. I am a little surprised he did not even make it down from 85 to 80. Obviously, if you're doing math, 4 more players to go. We're still going to have our live show later today at 3 o'clock. That's when roster cuts are finalized for today. Be sure to join us for that. But listen, it just has been inconsistent after inconsistent after inconsistent play for Daz Newsome. And quite frankly, I know we had major question marks and concerns and reasons to not like the prior regime and coaching staff, but maybe him not making the initial 53 last year as a 6th-round pick was kind of a sign that he just wasn't going to be a fit here for whatever reason. Maybe he's just not a good enough football player at this point in time. You know, when they drafted him out of North Carolina in the 6th round, I actually really liked the pick by Ryan Pace. You were getting a speedster who was an excellent return man in college, who could do some jet sweep action and do some, deep balls as a receiver, run some vertical routes, and just none of it's translated, man. It really hasn't. First preseason game this year, muffs a punt. Also had a bad drop. Yes, had a nice end around, ended up catching a touchdown, but really inconsistent. Second game, didn't pop either. Muffed another punt, albeit it wasn't really his fault. Gunner kind of ran into him, but still just, a couple of sloppy plays in the preseason were directly connected to Daz Newsome, and that is not the hits principle. Hits principle is being smart with the ball on offense, taking the ball away on defense, and 2 turnovers were directly connected to him offensively through 2 games. Not a good sign for a receiver fighting for a roster spot. Obviously, it's disappointing, man. I had high hopes for him. When they drafted him and Khalil Herbert in the 6th round last year, I was like, that's 2 value picks. And we've seen that with Herbert. He was a good backup running back last year, filled in as a starter well when David Montgomery got hurt. But the fact that Daz Newsome hasn't even been able to crack the rotation at receiver here in 2 years, it's not like this receiver room has been loaded in either of the 2 years. I mean, you're talking about guys like Damiere Byrd, Marquise Goodwin, and a few others getting snaps over him last year. This year, he gets cut while guys like, Simba Webster hasn't been cut yet. Isaiah Coulter is still around. Hell, Kevin Shaw, as I'm filming this, hasn't been cut. I think he will get cut, but the fact that he gets cut before all those guys, now maybe the Bears are doing him a solid saying, hey, you're not going to make the 53, but you're talented enough to go make another team. We'll just cut you now. Maybe that's the case, but whatever it is, it has not worked out for Daz Newsome in Chicago, and I, for one, am disappointed because I thought he could have worked out here. What's your one-word reaction to Daz Newsome getting cut? Mine is disappointed. Let me know in the comments section. By the way, I'm disappointed in Daz, not in the Bears. I think we all saw this coming. If you didn't, I don't know where you've been, what you've been paying attention to. One-word reaction, pinned comment coming on today's show. So if you get hit with that YouTube ad break, scroll down, reply to the pinned comment, your one-word reaction to Daz Newsome getting cut. Okay, talk a little bit more about this, and then maybe explore who else could get cut between now and 3 o'clock Central Time, because that is the deadline for rosters to get down to 80. The Bears are currently at 84 now with Daz Newsome on the way out. The Bears do practice at 1:30 today. I doubt anyone that's going to get cut would practice then. That doesn't really make sense. So I think we're going to get news before then of the 4 other cuts, but we'll wait and see. But let's talk about the receiver room for a second, then explore some other cuts. So Daz Newsome out of the mix. That's one guy that, was on the outside looking in. But who's that good news for? Dante Pettis. He's still around. Tajay Sharp. he's still around. I think Sharp's in probably a pretty good spot to make this team really flash in the preseason opener. Even a guy like Isaiah Coulter, who's outplayed Daz Newsome in the preseason, he's still hanging in. Those three guys benefit greatly from Daz getting cut. Don't think it really impacts Chris Fink or Isaiah Coulter. I don't view them as options to make this roster at this point in time. But after Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, Velus Jones, and Equinemius St. Brown, who are locks, it's also good for N'Keal Harry, who's hurt with an ankle injury. I think this bodes well for him to make the initial 53 and then placed on short-term IR after that. So that's pretty interesting as well. We'll see. One wide receiver has bit the dust, and that is Daz Newsome. I will say this, him getting cut this early before the 80-man cut down here probably means he's not going to come back to the practice squad. Probably part of the reason why the Bears did this. Like, hey, it hasn't worked out here. We want to give you a shot elsewhere, though. I could see that coming into play a little bit. All right, other cuts that could come down today. I've mentioned a few. I mean, Kevin Shaw, Chris Fink at receiver, there's no avenue for them making this football team. So I think those are a couple of guys that could get cut. Maybe they survive and play the last preseason game because you just cut a receiver and you need bodies, but they're not going to make the final 53, so they could certainly get cut. Gene DeLance, offensive lineman, who has hardly done anything. He could be someone that gets cut today. There's some deeper roster guys that are still hanging around. They're not going to cut Nathan Peterman before the final preseason game because A, I think they want to bring him back on the practice squad, and B, he's probably going to play a lot in the third preseason game because you don't want guys getting hurt. So I think that's a couple of reasons why he would survive that. Other guys, Demontre Tuggle, I think he'll probably make it to this last preseason game. Jalen Jones could be someone that gets cut. Greg Stroman, perhaps. Let's see. Looking at the depth chart here, just some deeper names on the roster. Bo Peep Keys, who really struggled against Seattle the other night. Sean Coleman, who hasn't impressed me. Julian Davenport, who hasn't been very good. So there's a few other guys in there that could get cut today. Obviously, they're going to have to pick 4 of them to trim this roster down to 53. Just looking at a couple more names here. I don't think Lamar Jackson will get cut here. Don't think Devontae Harris will get cut here. LaCale London, maybe, but I think he's flashed a little bit. Charles Snowden hasn't done a ton. So there's some guys that obviously are going to have to go. Do they cut Corey Dublin here, who they signed after Doug Kramer's injury to be like an emergency center type? Maybe, but they may want to have him for this preseason finale as well if they don't want to play Sam Mustipher that much because you're already down Lucas Patrick at center. So probably want to play it safe with Mustipher in the final game here and make sure he's healthy and ready to go for the preseason finale. They signed fullback Jake Barges the other day. Maybe they cut him, but I kind of feel like they signed him for a reason. So, yeah, I kind of expect him to play in this preseason finale. All right, predict it for us. Who is going to be cut next by the Chicago Bears? I want to hear it from you guys in the comments. 4 more players to go, so if you want to type 4 names down in the comment section, you can do so on this video. A couple more that I'll explore. Mike Pennell Jr., he hasn't flashed a ton in camp. I think guys like Trayvon Coley and Micah Treadaway are ahead of him, so that could be someone. I think Joe Thomas is safe for now. Jack Sanborn's definitely safe. DeMarquise Gates, I want to see playing another preseason game. So, yeah, I don't know. The last few spots are going to be tough. I would probably go ahead and cut Chris Fink and Kevin Shaw. That gets you down to 82. Lachavious Simmons, maybe, lineman from the prior regime. I still view him as a potential practice squad type of player, but we'll just have to wait and see on that front how they feel about him. Zach Thomas, I think he'll survive one more game, but then likely get cut after the preseason finale. So we'll see. I just listed about 10 guys that could be on the chopping block. Time will tell. Only got a few hours until 3 o'clock Central this afternoon, probably about 6 hours by the time you guys watch this. So there you go. All right, there it is. News of the morning. Daz Newsome has been cut by the Chicago Bears. It's a shame. It's a shame. I had high hopes for him. I never thought he'd be a star or anything, but I thought maybe he could be, a number 3-ish, 4-ish receiver eventually that has great special teams value, and that obviously did not prove to be the case. I am Harrison Graham. Appreciate everybody for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, do so. Hit that notification bell because we will be live at 3 o'clock Central today, breaking down the other cuts and getting you caught up on the latest news and rumors around the Chicago Bears as well, and taking your questions as always. So subscribe and join us, and you can follow me on social media at HGramNFL, both on Twitter and on Instagram. That's all for now. We'll see you in the studios this afternoon.